Okay, good morning, everybody. It's David Bradley of Revellers Club. I'm today talking to William Ralston-Saul, the mavern, the guru of all things crypto, the founder of Incrypto Hub. And this morning, William is going to talk about winning coins. So, William, my question is, how do you pick a winning coin?
So yes, David, the first thing that you have to take into account is where you are in the market cycle. So cryptocurrency, just like the stock exchange, has bear markets and it has bull markets. And for anybody who's pretty much invested in equities or crypto at the moment, will be aware that we are in a bear market. The important thing to know is a bear market can make you rich, whereas a bull market might just make you wealthy. So the right now, Bitcoin is down below its 200-week moving average. This is very important. This has always been a good time to buy Bitcoin. And when Bitcoin is below its 200-week moving average, all of the other coins are generally way further down in the dumps. And this could continue for 6 months. It could continue for a year. It could go much lower. Although it's generally considered that Bitcoin's unlikely to go much below $20,000, and it's at $30,000 right now. So the first thing to do when you're picking a winning coin is to buy at the right time, and the right time is in the bear market, and the wrong time is in the midst of a bull market. So there will be, over the next 6 months to a year, fantastic opportunities, and possibly you could argue there are already opportunities to buy coins and then see them ride back up with the next bull market. The question is which coins and how do you pick those coins, which is what we're going to get into now.
Exactly. So, okay, William. So, what's the first thing that should be considered when looking and analyzing a whole number of different coins? What's the first thing you should do?
Well, the first thing really comes down to the quality of the coin, because you can't simply just look at the coins that were popular in the previous bull market and say, okay, well, coin X, reached $10 and now it's back to $1. So if I buy it now, I'll just get it on the next bull run and go back to $10 again. This is not the case. There are coins from 2017 bull market that went down to down 99% in 2018 and 19, and then just never recovered again, never came back, because essentially those projects were dead. However, there were other coins, let's say, such as Cardano, if we take an example, that was $1.50 in the 2017 bull market, went down to 2 cents, and then came back up to $2.50. Okay, and those are the coins, the ones that have the ability to recover in 2 years' time. Those are the ones that you need to pick in the middle of the bear market. And so this is very, very important, and it's critical. It's critical to understand whether a coin has the potential to recover. And the first thing you need to look at is the project a real project? I.e., does the coin have some fundamental use? Is there a reason for it to exist, or was it all just built on hype? If it was all just built on hype, the chances are it won't recover. There needs to be a real project beneath it. There will be projects that will go through the roof in the next bull market built on hype alone, but they will be new projects. They're unlikely to be old projects that have a second hype cycle, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So, how do you start this process? How do you do the research to find all this information?
Well, the first thing is really to look and see, does it solve a problem? Okay, so in the case of Bitcoin, if we just take it simply, Bitcoin does solve a problem. It's a way of storing value for those who don't have another way to store value. So if you live in a country that doesn't have rule of law, doesn't have reliable banks, putting your money into land or something physical like gold is risky because of just a physical security situation. And then putting your money into the local currency is risky because of hyperinflation. And putting your money in the bank, even if you put it in a dollar account in a local bank, the bank might not give you the money back. So for people in that situation, something like Bitcoin is fantastic because it's this scarce digital asset. There's only 21 million of them, and it's somewhere they can put their wealth where it shouldn't disappear because it doesn't have an inflation problem. And also they can store it in their own wallet and they're not relying on a third party to do custody for them. So that's an example of a project that has a use case. If we were to take then Ethereum, which is an infrastructure blockchain, it has a use case because there are lots of decentralized applications built on top of the Ethereum blockchain, whether they be trading platforms or NFT marketplaces or games. These things are built on Ethereum, and to use any of these applications, you need to essentially pay the toll or the fees or it's called the gas in Ethereum coins. So you have to buy that. So it has a real use case. If we were to take a project that doesn't have a use case, we could take Dogecoin, for example. Now, not to say that Dogecoin can't defy gravity and do some amazing things, but
Apparently, you can buy Tesla with it now, or Elon Musk
yeah,
is
but
very
you
keen
can
on it.
buy Tesla with cash. I mean, I don't. That in itself is not that doesn't make a use case. I don't think. I mean,
No,
why? I mean, if you could buy a Tesla with money from your bank account, why would you bother buying it with Dogecoin? It's just a pain in the ass.
I think it's a big. I mean, I think Elon Musk uses Dogecoin as a joke. I mean, if you look how it's spelled, DOGECOIN, dodgy coin, um, you know, and it has absolutely no value at all. I seem to
Well, it was
recall.
created. It was invented. The person who invented it as a joke,
Yeah,
and then didn't actually make much money out of it. They sold their share of Dogecoin and bought, I think, a Toyota Prius or something like that. And so they're not rich, but now the value of Dogecoin is about 10 billion or 15 billion. So lots of people have made money. And yes, it is just a joke. That's all it is. Even if you go on their website, it just says it's a fun, friendly community for Shiba Inus worldwide. Shiba Inus being the dog on the meme that represents Dogecoin. Yeah, I don't think that any Shiba Inu understands what Dogecoin is, considering they're dogs.
okay.
Uh, so the first thing is you got to find a project that has a reason to exist. Okay, followed by you need a project that's got a real team. You need a project that's got enough money to last them until the next bull market. If a project runs out of finance in the middle of a bear market, they won't be able to raise more money in the middle of the bear market, or it'll be extremely unlikely, and therefore their team will disband. People have to, pay the bills, so they go off and get jobs, and essentially that will be the end of the project. It's no different than a company. If a company runs out of money and it can't raise any more money, doesn't matter how good the project is, the company will cease to exist. And that's the same for any of these crypto projects. So first thing, does it solve a problem? One. Does it have a good team? Two. And does it have enough money to see it through until the next bull market? Those would be the critical things. If you can answer those things in the positive, then you can look at the more detailed things such as tokenomics and the roadmap.
There's one which you talked about on your excellent course the other day, which was helium as
Yeah.
being a good example. One of the interesting things that I thought about helium was that it's actually acting in a space that's really, really growing in IoT, the Internet of Things, where all sorts of devices, sensors for testing things like the environment, quality of the air, where someone's dog is. These things connect securely over, if you like, wireless networks, and helium is a way of providing that. Does that make a big difference if it's a massively growing market?
Yeah. No, of course. I mean, the Helium project has solved a problem essentially. IoT devices. Cheap devices, cheap, let's say, assets. Maybe a wooden pallet for a crate of onions or something like that. Something that costs 20 quid. If you wanted to track that with existing tracking devices using the mobile phone network, your annual tracking cost will probably be the value of the thing that you're trying to track and trying not to lose, and therefore it doesn't make any economic sense. And what Helium have come in and brought out a way of tracking or using sensors, whether it's temperature or water pipes leaking or whatever. And they've done it in a way that's so cheap to operate that it now opens the door for IoT businesses to grow. So lots of products that essentially could not be made because it wouldn't be economically feasible to run can now be made, and the majority of these will be related to tracking. And yes, the helium coin is what essentially that's the fuel that runs that whole blockchain and that whole network, and it's growing not just in the IoT space now in the 5G space in the US. I mean, Helium's has either done agreements with some of the biggest players in the 5G space or is in negotiations with them right now. I think the chance for Helium to become a giant in the communications industry is very high. I can look it up as we're speaking. Its market cap, yeah, 700 million right now. So it's in 70th position in all the cryptocurrencies. I think it's probable that Helium could become top 10 in terms of market cap of all the cryptocurrencies. It's in terms of a sort of a use case and adoption coming online. I think it's probably it would be in the top 10 most advanced projects that exist right now in the blockchain space. It's got a huge community, of 800,000 nodes spread across the world. It's almost in every country in the world. It's my favorite project.
So that's Helium. So what other coins would you say are similar to Helium, have a very distinct use case, they're in a growing market, they actually do something very
I think some of
useful?
the data storage coins, so ways of storing data, so that it can essentially, if you want to store data forever, and you want it so that data cannot be tampered with and not be altered. So maybe this would be, in the case of the media, like original photographs, so that you don't end up with a tampered photograph and then there's question about which one was the original, what was the truth of the photograph.
Well, can you give us some examples of those coins? I mean, there's Filecoin, isn't there, for data storage?
Yeah, so Filecoin's a really good example of that. Probably my favorite project in that area is called Arweave, Weave, I think. And or the symbol Arweave. Yeah,
Okay.
I've got it right.
Let's have a look. Arweave. Yep, you got it right. ARWEAVE.
So Arweave's a great project. Arweave's got a lot of clients. A lot of their clients are particularly from the blockchain world. So a lot of these blockchain projects.
So, sorry, what does Arweave actually do for listeners' benefit?
It does permanent data storage. The thing about Arweave is that you only pay once. You pay $7 per gigabyte, and then that gigabyte of data is stored forever, or 200 years, I think is the guarantee that they make. So that's quite an interesting one because it doesn't require continuous financing to keep it going. As we know, no business or organization generally goes forever, right? They all have their time when they stop functioning. And the nice thing about Arweave is it doesn't matter, right? Once the data is stored, it's stored. So if the company that paid to store that data goes bankrupt, or the government or people cease to exist, or let's say the mood changes and people decide they want to delete a piece of history, with Arweave that can't happen. The data is stored forever. So I think it's very, very interesting indeed.
That makes it different to
And
Filecoin, which is if we're looking at winning coins, you just pick one or the other. Would you pick Arweave or Filecoin?
I'd probably pick Arweave. I think they're both interesting, but I think I'd pick Arweave.
For that reason you just mentioned.
Yeah, I like that reason, and also it's just got the adoption that it seems to be getting. I think it to me, I think they'll both do well, but it just to me Arweave makes more sense.
Okay.
And then there's other projects. So these sort of communication, anything to do with the decentralization of the internet itself. So this could be decentralization of data storage, or the cloud, or social media, or communications. This is all within a trend that's called Web3.
Yeah.
And so you've got Helium in Web3, Arweaves, and Filecoin as part of Web3. And then other interesting projects inside the Web3 world are, for example, something called Akash, which is the decentralization of the cloud.
How do you spell that?
Akash is spelled Akash.
Okay.
And so Akash, what it does is it allows, across the world, there's data centers that are operating at partial capacity. They have maybe 50% of their data storage used up, and 50% is just sitting there doing nothing. And Akash, using its own blockchain, is creating a network whereby all of that unused storage space or cloud computing power can be put onto a network, and then companies that need this cloud space, they can essentially go and get it from the Akash network. And because essentially it's unused, it hasn't been built on for that purpose in mind, it can be provided at approximately 50% of the costs of the main big competitors, such as AWS, for example.
All right. Okay. So Akash, everybody, look into that. So William, let's just move on to tokenomics, because you have said that that's an absolutely critical part of choosing a winning coin. Tell us about tokenomics. How does that come into it?
So tokenomics is basically the economics of the token setup of any particular project. So a project has coins, or quite often called tokens, and each individual token is one unit of value in that project. So now the thing is a project will normally will have a maximum limit. So let's say you've just got project X, and project X has 1 billion tokens as its maximum limit of tokens that can ever come to market. However, when token X first launches, from that 1 billion tokens, probably 1/10 of it will be on the market. So let's say 100 million of those tokens will be on the market. And those tokens will belong to, some of them to early investors, or to team members, or maybe influencers, or whoever they've been distributed to. And then what will happen is the remaining 900 million that are essentially in the treasury, but allocated, let's say, to investors, but they've had essentially their rewards locked up for a specific period of time, those will gradually be allocated, sometimes over a year and sometimes over 50 years, depending on the situation. But when new tokens in a project get essentially handed out to the people who are meant to receive them, so let's say they're handed out to investors, if the price of that token is significantly above what they paid for it, there's always going to be a temptation for those investors to sell and take some profit off the table. And this is a critical thing. So if you buy into a project, and it happens that that 10 days after that, the total supply on the market of the tokens for that project double, because a whole lot of new tokens have been released, there's a very high chance that the price of that token will go down. So this is something to take into account. In the case of Bitcoin, actually, it's pretty good, because there's only just over 1% of new Bitcoin coming onto the market each year, which is essentially 1% inflation in the supply of Bitcoin. If you take Helium, which is a fantastic project, but there is 100 million Helium tokens in existence. There's 2.5 million issued to the community for mining, so essentially providing the network each month. So 2.5 million each month, that comes to 30 million in 1 year. You've got 100 million, you're adding 30 million, so Helium actually has a 30% inflation issue. That's one of the less positive things about Helium. Now, in time, the Helium's, the rewards will be reduced. In a bit over a year, the rewards will be halved, and also the total supply on the market will be higher. So the new supply will be a lower percentage of a larger number. So the inflation, will within a couple of years, the inflation will be 10% and not 30%. But it's something to take into account, particularly in a bear market. Things like Helium with a high inflation rate, they'll get hit hard because the speculators aren't there to buy up the excess supply, which creates fantastic opportunities.
Okay.
Because the price will go.
Okay, great. So what kind of tools can you use to check out the tokenomics, and indeed all the various other the other fundamentals that make up for a winning coin?
Well, the place to always start is either on coinmarketcap.com or on coingecko.com. Those are the two sites that have all of the coins listed. It has all of the price information. It has links to their website, all their social media channels. That's where you start.
Okay. Can I just do a ruthless plug for your business, which is that one place, listeners, where you can find out all of this is at incryptohub.com, because you have links to all those websites there and a lot more. Is that right, William?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's got links to everything. That was the whole point of building the Incrypto Hub dashboard. Was essentially to do that, to make it so you could get not only to CoinGecko and CoinMarketCap, but tons of other tools that are out there, which make it easy to find everything.
So do you want to just recap CoinMarketCap and CoinGecko? Just very briefly, what do they both do and how do they help?
They're almost identical.
Yeah.
So that's it's just there's some tiny differences. But what they do is they give a list of all the cryptocurrencies.
Yeah.
And they're normally ordered in order of market cap. Market cap is essentially the total value of the project, i.e., all of the tokens of that project times by the price of the token. So in the case of Bitcoin, 700 billion, sorry, for Bitcoin. So that it just has a list, and you can search any project that you're looking for. And then you will be able to get information on that project, whether you want links to its website, its price data, social media channels, what exchanges it's traded on, so you know where to buy it. Pretty much any information you need.
Okay, fantastic. And the other fundamentals to look at is presumably you need to have a look at a white paper, the coin's white paper.
Yeah, so the white paper is critical, because the white paper allows you to read about the team and the project and the plan as a whole. If you are not experienced in crypto, a lot of white papers are going to be hard to read, even for myself, who is experienced. The white papers can get very technical and can be often be written essentially by nerds for nerds, which makes it a hard read. A lot of projects now do something called a light paper, which is essentially a paper designed for the likes of you and me to read.
Okay.
Which is easier and less technical jargon.
Yeah. Okay. And of course, the website, not just state the obvious, I know, but what kind of information should that give you that you should look out for?
Well, probably the most critical thing on the website is getting information on the team. But the crypto world works in such a way that all their announcements, all their news, which normally a normal website, you'd get the news about that company. There'll be a news button, essentially a news tab. Crypto websites don't normally work like that. All of their news is pretty much on their Twitter feed or on their Discord channel. It's a very different way of essentially sharing information and news than what you'd be used to in the normal world. Normal websites, news is very static, i.e. there might be a press release and you can read it. With a crypto project, there will be information releases on Twitter, but then you will be able to communicate with the team, and all of the teams, they have people who are employed to communicate with the community, because all of these projects depend on having a live, engaged community.
Okay.
Which is great in some ways, because you can, you can literally, it's almost like being able to pick up the phone to your favorite company and ask them what's going on. Well, you can actually do that with almost every crypto project, even the big famous ones. There are administrators on the social media channels, and you can reach out to them and ask a question.
Can you reach quite senior people in a company that's launching a coin in this way? I mean, it's difficult to ring out the CEO. You get blocked by the PA, but if you send a direct message on Twitter or a
direct messages on Twitter are not so great. I think Discord and Telegram are the channels where most of the sort of live interaction happens.
Okay.
Twitter, they post news and people comment. And you can direct message people, but generally, in my experience, Twitter's messaging system just doesn't work that well. So the Telegram and Discord are the two areas where people really interact, and increasingly Discord is the area.
What about YouTube? Is that worth considering?
YouTube. So the actual projects themselves sometimes have their own YouTube channels, but generally don't get big followings. The people who get big followings on YouTube channels are the influencers. You need to be very careful with influencers about who you listen to. It's a great way of learning about stuff and hearing about new projects. I would say YouTube is fantastic, but you do have to keep in mind that most of the influencers on YouTube are talking about projects that they've been paid to talk about. Or that they have some vested interest.
Okay.
But then saying that, there are YouTubers that really give very, very useful information. Bitcoin price and market cycles. Benjamin Cohen will probably be one of the best YouTubers with fantastic content. And then in terms of learning about new trends and particularly coins related to gaming and NFTs. The influencer called Elio Trades is very good indeed.
Elio Trades, how do you spell that?
Elio Trades would be ELLIO Trades.
ELLIO Trades. Okay, that's great.
Yeah, and then although he doesn't post that often, but hopefully we'll start posting again. The person called Ivan on Tech.
Oh yes, Ivan on Tech. Now he's from Belarus, isn't he? I remember years ago looking at his.
I think yes, I think he is from Belarus, but or is he Scandinavian? I can't remember.
No,
Anyway,
he is based in Sweden, and he's from Belarus.
he's based here.
And he was the one who said, in the West, we don't understand Bitcoin because we have a comfortable life. But if you live in Belarus, they can take your house, they can take your car, they can take all your money, they can take your wife, they can take your children, but they can't take your Bitcoin.
Well, that's the point I always make. Is it's harder in our Western society where you have rule of law. It's harder to understand the use case of Bitcoin. But I spent half of my life living in Tajikistan. Literally, I spent 13 years living there. I'm very, very familiar with what it feels like to live and work in a different environment, and I can see the value of Bitcoin very clearly.
Yeah, I'm just moving on. So tell us about Token Terminal.
Token Terminal is a great site. Basically what it does is it looks into the revenue of projects. Believe it or not, some cryptocurrency projects actually make money. They're not just all hype. And Token Terminal is where you can see how much money they make. And not only you can see how much money they make, but you can see how much money is distributed to the token holders. So some projects make lots of money, but essentially keep it all and the token holders get nothing, which is not very good. Some projects make a lot of money and then they distribute it to the token holders, which is fantastic. And you can see all of this on Token Terminal. The important number to look at is called the protocol revenue, because that's the revenue that gets distributed to the token holders as opposed to the total revenue.
So if you were on a desert island and had to pick just one tool to help you pick a winning coin, out of all the ones you just mentioned, which would it be?
So I have access to the internet.
yes. You got a roaming SIM card on a dongle which you can plug into your now extremely old and rather rusty MacBook Air or MacBook Pro.
CoinGecko.
CoinGecko.
Yeah.
It'd be CoinGecko. And does that have all the information that the wonderful Token Terminal has that you just mentioned?
No, but it's got but you can't live on Token Terminal alone. Whereas you might just be able to survive on CoinGecko alone if you're on a desert island. It's got the broadest range of information on it on one site. It's got, assuming I'm not allowed to click to any other site from CoinGecko, but if I'm actually just using CoinGecko, it has the broadest range of information.
Okay.
Yes, definitely it would be CoinGecko.
Okay, well, look, William, many thanks indeed. I look forward to seeing you on the 27th of June.
Absolutely.
And great. Well, thank you very much.
David, thanks a lot. That was fantastic. And I look forward to seeing everybody on the 27th of June and talking about how we're going to find some winning coins.